Hi guys, it's Wade McMaster here. In today's video I'm going to be just walking you through the basics on how to basically export and optimize an image in Photoshop to save for the internet. So maybe you're running a blog or a website or maybe just some other platform and you're looking to really find that sweet spot where you got a high quality image that's at the size you need it, really small file size so it loads quickly, but you don't want to sacrifice too much quality. So I'm going to just basically get into it. I've got this image here I've downloaded from pexels.com. Very high quality image. The photo, I'll just show you if you zoom in. It's very high resolution. A lot of noise, a little bit of noise there, but that's besides, it's not really important. Still a great photo, but the problem is if I go up to image here in Photoshop, in image size, you'll see that it's actually 6,000 pixels wide by 4,000 pixels wide, which is a pretty massive photo. Now, generally speaking, most computer monitors are about 1920 by 1080, so you can see this is pretty much double the width and double the height, which actually is pretty much 4 times the information. So it might just be, well, actually triple, sorry, not double, almost triple. So that's actually a pretty huge picture to pop into a website or something like that. So obviously, even for phones, the resolution of most phones is about the same. So this is just way too large an image to use and have download quickly. If I actually have a PNG of this and it's about 43 megabytes, which is definitely too big. We sort of want to aim, if we're talking about a website, I try to keep it under 100 kilobytes, but if you're talking about a really big image, sometimes I'll let it go up to about 100 or 150 kilobytes. Because you want to keep it nice and small, basically, so it loads quickly. So a few things I want to touch on. There's a basic interface that we're going to go through, but before I actually touch on that, one thing I want to mention is that if you're actually looking to save this online, maybe you don't want the whole picture. So I will show you very quickly how to crop first. There's 2 ways of doing it. One way I prefer is just to go up here to this toolbar, where it's got the circle arrow, I hold down, select the rectangular marquee tool, which will quite often be seen there by itself. If not, look for one of these other symbols, and then when you click and hold that little flyer, it will pop out. You can choose the one you want. So the rectangular marquee is generally the one I use. So if I want to crop, I can actually say go here, nice and wide, and just really focus on the action, and go to image and crop. So that's one thing I can do too if I want to save it from there. Just going to hit Control Z to undo. Obviously, you can just go up here to undo if you want to. But the other way you can do it is actually use the crop tool. Like I said, I typically tend to use the selection tool, but the crop tool itself is somewhere in here. This one here, if I hold down the slice here, you get the crop tool. And this gives me a few handles so I can move it around, get it exactly where I want. I can even rotate a bit if I want to as well. So it has a few more options that just makes it a little bit better. And of course, there's a few other options up here, such as you can choose the ratio. So if you're going for, say, a YouTube video thumbnail, you can choose 16:9, and that way, whatever you pop in there is going to be the right size. You can, I believe, you can add content aware. So if I drag this out to here, it should fill in that space there if I've got content aware turned on. So you've got a few options there with your crop, which is pretty cool. I don't want to go through too many of the crop settings, but there are more available. Probably if you're looking to learn more about this, leave a comment below and I'll explore the crop feature more in depth. But if you're happy with that, generally you can hit the tick up here. Not only will it crop, but it'll fill in that top corner using the content aware feature. So you can see where we had that chop off there has been filled in. So cropping images is pretty handy and pretty easy to do. Once again, I'm just going to Control Z because I want to work with the full image. So if we're ready to save this image, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go up to File. Now in older versions of Photoshop, there'll be an option here that just says Save for Web. But it's not here at the moment, so we're actually going to go to Export and then over to Save for Web, and then brackets Legacy, and we're going to click on that. And we get this cool this interface here. It'll pop up, it'll load the image. Because it's a large image, it is taking a little while to load. Okay, so it's showing the image at 100%, which is probably a little too big for us. But we're going to leave it there for a moment the way it is, because one of the first things we're going to do is identify how big we need the image. So let's say we want it to fill the width of our content on our website, and maybe that's, maybe it's a bit over half the width of a full desktop screen, or so we're going to make it about, say, we'll make it say 1200 pixels wide. So the way you do that is down here at image size, I type in 1200, and even if I just click to the next field, it'll think about it and actually resize it. So now that's at 100%, it's actually resized that image. And the good news is, if it actually changes it proportionally, but if I turn this off, I can make it 1200 by 1200. It'll actually stretch the image as well, which I don't usually recommend. Most people can pick up on that. It's just a bit of an ugly sort of look, but it's great for if you really need to stretch something. There's a few things here to look at. You can simply go by percentage. So if I go back to the original resolution of 6000, I can choose to make it, say, 66%, and you can see it already calculates those numbers in there. I'll pop that back to 100. When you're resizing, there's a few ways you can do this. There's nearest neighbor, which is probably the worst way to resize, because all it simply does is pick the nearest pixel and use that. So if I go nearest neighbor and do what we did before, it'll actually create a really really low quality image. But if you're actually wanting to get a bit of an effect going, it can be used to create a bit of an interesting effect. So see how noisy that is in comparison to if I switch this over to bicubic smoother. All of a sudden it smooths out that noise. So you've got a few options here on quality. Bicubic sharper tries to actually sharpen the image instead of smooth it. So you've got a few options there. I usually go for, or even bilinear, which will, so basically you've got different levels of quality, different approaches. I usually stick with bicubic smoother. But let's say this is the size of our image that we're happy to go with. Now, you may notice, like I said before, I have a PNG of this image, which is 48 megabytes. By sizing this down to 1200, this PNG is already 1.627 megabytes. So it's about 1/30th the size, roughly, I'm not really doing the maths properly, of what it was. So we've got some options here on what we want to save, because it looks like a PNG is going to be too large. So the good news about a PNG, though, is that if I actually exit this for a second, let's say that we want a spot on this to be transparent. So I'm just going to, for the sake of the video, double click on this layer. I'm going to add a circle marquee, and I'm just going to hit delete. So we've got a transparent spot on the image here. And I'll use that for the rest of the video just to demonstrate a few options. So I can go back up here to File, Export, and Save for Web. Okay, we're going to resize this image to 1200. So now we've got the image we want to work with. So you get, basically we can play with a few levels of, a few different files, a few levels of quality. What we can do is we can go to the original here, which shows 3.66 megabytes at 1200, and that's as a JPEG. Optimized as a PNG is even half that size. You can see here I've got the transparency turned on, so we've got this transparency. You could even have the original and the optimized here, or you can even have 4 different options you want to play with. I like to be able to investigate my images, so I usually recommend just sticking with the optimized, because you can zoom in and take a look. If you've actually added slices to your image, once again, topic for another video, you can actually go through and click the individual slices that you want to set up and change the quality of them over here as well. So if you want, also if you're someone who wants to break up an image into several little images sort of within that, let me know in the comments below. I'll do a slices video for you as well to show you just basically how slicing, the slice select tool works and how slicing works. So you can get an image, create a bunch of slices, and then simply when you go to save, you don't have to pull the image to bits. You can just basically save this from here and all the slices will be saved automatically. So first of all, let's zoom in a little bit. We're going to grab the zoom tool, we're going to zoom in. And we've got a few other options. Obviously you can see here we can turn the slice visibility on and off. We can change the eyedropper color to whatever. But I'm not really too concerned about that. What we want to look at is we've got some presets here. You can go through and try those out if you want, but let's just forget about this for now, because all these are sets of profiles that are set up here. Because when we come down to here, I'm not too concerned about this information Here, I'm not too concerned about the color table at the moment, but we will come to that. And if you're working on an animated GIF, you have got some animation options here as well. Probably something for another video yet again. Once again, leave a comment if you want to see that. But PNG, to look at it for a sec, we've got GIF, JPEG, we've got two types of PNG, and we've got a Windows bitmap. The bitmap is probably not going to be used. I wouldn't use it at all necessarily for the internet. I would be looking at the above options. A PNG 24 is a full color image in the PNG format. So it's an uncompressed image, but allows you to have transparencies, and it's high quality. But it's really great if you're using a lot of flat colors, because you can still get a small file size and high quality with a sort of a flatter image. For photos like this, it's just there's way too much information, and that's where a JPEG comes in. JPEG is sort of the higher, it's got the highest compression. It'll actually take the quality of the image down a little bit, but in a way that's sort of not as visible, depending on how far you go with it. So JPEG is a more highly compressed format. And but yeah, PNG basically knocks the colors down, so you can't have any more than 8-bit color, but you can choose how many colors are in the image, and that'll dial it right back and make the file smaller again. And a GIF is similar in the sense that it has transparencies. You can only have 8-bit color, like the PNG 8, up to 256 colors, I think it is. So you have a limitation on how many colors can be in the image. So we're going to look at the 8-bit ones first, so we can move forward from there. So I've picked this GIF, and I can choose up to 256 colors. Now, it doesn't look too bad. This image actually does all right on 256 colors, but as I slowly drop it down to 128, you might have noticed a little bit of change there. I drop it down to 64. You can start to see some dithering here, and that's what these colors here are. So you can see here, we can basically can a color. If I don't like this brown color here, I can click on it and bin it. So you can actually edit the colors in the image to turn it back as you see fit. So as you can see, if we go back to 32, 16, even down to 4 colors, we get this 4-color image basically that would save, and the file size is 90 kilobytes. So we actually managed to shrink the file a fair bit, but the amount of information we've lost, unless this is the effect you're going for, this isn't really a good outcome. Now, you can play with the dither a little bit, so it has different levels of how it dithers the image. If we turn that right down, you get more solid colors, a smaller file too with 52 kilobytes, or you can turn it right up. Now, WebSnap will actually choose sort of like web-friendly colors. So if I turn that right up, you see the colors are more sort of like more basic web colors, and lossiness you can obviously turn up and sacrifice a little bit more image quality. GIF these days, it's great for if you want to have an animated GIF or something like that, but to be honest, as a web designer, I rarely use GIF at all anymore, but it's cool to show you just so you can have a play with it if you want to. The way you dither it is a diffusion or a pattern or noise, so you've got a few different ways to get that effect, play with it. Turn it back to auto. Alright, so that's the GIF, and you'll find that we still have this transparency. One thing you'll notice, and we'll notice the same thing on the PNG 8, is it's really hard to see there, but there's a white outline just in there. If I change this matte color here to black, we get a black outline. So it's trying to basically, if you've heard the term anti-aliasing, it's trying to fade the edge into what it believes the color behind it will be. So if you have a dark background behind this transparent image, it'll try to match it to that image. So that's just a bit of information for you on that. You can see that black line a bit more clearly here, but you can choose a custom color if you are putting it against a particular color background by going here. But and you'll find the PNG 8 is much the same. We can choose how many colors we want, and because I've been playing with the color table, it's actually sort of limiting my options a little bit, but it's all good. We'll go. So yeah, we can add new colors in, that sort of thing. But it still has a transparency, same options. You can turn the web snap up or down. So I've turned the web snap down, and it's a bit more natural again. You've got a few other options. You basically just tick, see how they look. This is great for logos, I think, because sometimes you just get images that you need transparencies, but sometimes it just ends up being too big with a PNG 24. So sometimes it's great to actually have a PNG 8 for certain images, and you can still use that transparency. But the PNG 24 we'll go back to very quickly. Full image, full color. As you can see, we don't need a matte because this is actually anti-aliased. It actually is partially transparent in these areas, so you don't need to set a matte color. So the PNG is a way to go for full quality, but like I said, 1.76 meg. We can try changing it to interlaced. It comes a bit bigger. Color profile, I wouldn't necessarily worry about that. Or we can turn the transparency off, and you'll see we get our matte color in there, and we actually save a little bit on size. But the one you're probably going to use the most, especially if you're working with photos, is actually going to be JPEG. So we're going to go into the JPEG settings and explore those a little bit. And then we'll save this, and you can see the difference. So at the moment, we've got a JPEG. It's on high. It's optimized. We've got our matte color as black for our transparency. Now, JPEG doesn't have any transparency. So you're pretty much at the point now we're going to be ignoring this circle as long as we're talking about JPEG, because we just don't have transparencies in JPEG. But if you're putting it onto a flat color, just try and match the color itself, and just overlay the full JPEG over the top of that color. Otherwise, if it's going over the top of a photo and it might move, you might have to stick with a PNG. But basically, you've got a few different options here for JPEG. Now, if I pump the quality right up to 100, you see we've got an 860 kilobyte file. If I knock it right down and watch the quality even from here to 0, now you can't see a big difference possibly in this video, but the file is now 50 kilobytes. But if I zoom right in, you can see here how much information has been lost. You see just how much there's lots of large sort of like matte squares, and like it's very lossy. But if I crank it back up to even 80, all of a sudden the detail reappears. So that's how we're able to adjust the quality of the JPEG to get it as big or as small as we want. So at the moment it's at very high. If I turn off optimized, it adds a little bit of size, but I can go to progressive instead. Progressive, I do believe, holds a very low res version of the image, so I think it loads it first and then the high quality version. Not 100% sure because it's not really that important. The main thing is just getting the full image loaded nice and quick. I generally just go for whichever one's going to be smaller. In this case, the progressive is smaller. And we just adjust that. Whoops. Get back in there. If you're looking for the shortcut key, it's Shift Control Alt S. All right, so we go back to that JPEG for a sec. All right, that's what you get for I accidentally closed it. That's all right. Oh, just for the background color black again. All right, so I'm going to zoom in. So I'm going to hit Z. I can either click this or I can hit the Z on my keyboard. And I actually find a nice spot to zoom in. So once again, we've got the face here. Let's use that as our marker. At the moment, the quality is great. 400 kilobytes is a little too big. So what I want to do is, obviously I want to keep progressive turned on, so that way we just save that little bit of space. But I want to try and get the quality to a point where it's going to be difficult to recognize a lack of quality, but the file is going to be maybe between 100 to 200 kilobytes, because it is one of the larger images that you'll find on a website page, something like that. And basically what you can do is simply grab the slider and move it back to, say, let's try 60. Let's try 60. We've got 224 kilobytes. Another thing I actually kind of skipped over is I can actually blur the image as well. It makes it so it's 149 now. But if you've got an image you actually want to have a blur effect, that's cool, but to be honest, I never really use it. But it is there if you want to use it. So 224 kilobytes at 60. Now we can see if I go up again, if I just go back and forth a little bit, I like to be able to watch the quality change. Even though you can see the change in quality, I think at 60, it's still not noticeable unless you've seen the original image. There's a few things you've got to be really looking, basically. But that's still just a little too big. So I might knock it down to 50 and see what we get. Okay, 166 kilobytes. Let's knock it up a little bit. Let's aim for about 170, 180 and try and keep that some quality. So yeah, you're pretty much just adjusting this till you get the size you want. So this image is going to be a bit tough to get really good quality, but if I zoom out a bit, you see it still looks pretty decent. You really have to look hard, but I like to zoom in because if I'm having to sort of really kind of squint a little bit to see the lack of quality, then I know it's zoomed in, it should look pretty good. But if I zoom out and I can see errors, like if I take this from 53 down to 27, I can kind of see errors as it is already. I just have to look at it for more than a second. And if I go even further down to 14, I can really see some of the artifacts popping up, especially around this area here. So yeah, 53 is pretty good. We've got a good, decent quality image there. It's 200 kilobytes, a bit bigger than I want. But let's say maybe I'm comfortable with the idea of making it a smaller image at, say, 1024, and even stretching it, because images can be resized reasonably effectively now. So we've only lost a little bit of the image, but we've actually dropped a decent chunk of size. So we can even pump the quality up a little bit, get up to about 170. Now if I zoom in, you can see the artifacts are harder to spot. I do think that even at the smaller resolution, it's a higher quality image, really, and you gain a much faster load time. Well, not much faster, but a faster load time. So that's basically how you can adjust your JPEG. You check your file size down here, just play with your quality, and get it to where you want, and that's adjusting a JPEG and getting that ready. All right, so we've explored all the options. Everything else is in the same spot: the sizing, the size of the file. So let's save this file. And we'll just call it optimized. Now if I actually bring this across, so you see I've got my PNG here, which is 43 meg, and then my optimized image, which is 172 kilobytes. And I haven't actually even cropped it or anything, but we can basically open it up and take a look. So this is the full PNG. And go back to the JPEG there with our little black circle. So that's basically it. That's how you can export a JPEG, PNG, save for web. Yeah, a nice, easy tutorial for you. I tried to go, might have been a little bit more in depth than you wanted, but I really wanted to cover all the bases, so that way, if you're using this in the future, you understand exactly what it is you're looking at and can get full control over what you're trying to achieve. So thanks for watching the video. If you are looking for more Photoshop videos, I am starting to release more. I've got a few more on my channel already. So don't forget to check out my channel and check out the Photoshop playlist. Also subscribe if you want more while you're there. Like the video. If you want anything else, leave a comment below and I'll see if I can deliver it for you. Otherwise, I hope to speak to you again soon, and have a great day. Thanks for watching.